Call to order this February 14th, 2022 council meeting. First item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, rules of order. We follow Robert's Rules of Order and any other rules that are adopted at the annual organizational meeting. Item 4, adoption of Ellsworth City Council minutes, 12/20/21 regular council meeting and the 1/10/22 regular council meeting. Councilor Hanson.
I just have one question, which is for the December meeting, number 17, discussion and action on criteria that will be used to allocate ARPA funds. It says will schedule a workshop. That was the action item. So if we actually already decided that we were going to schedule a workshop, then maybe I don't need my agenda item to be on this time. I wasn't sure how we left that, actually.
That's a good question. I'm not positive either. I think if we leave it on the council agenda for this evening, we can just make sure
Fine.
that, and because I'm not sure we took a vote.
Yeah.
So I think that,
Fine. That sounds fine. I just wasn't sure. Okay. Motion to approve both of those meeting minutes?
yeah,
There's a couple of changes
Okay.
that need to be made to them. The changes that we received in a email earlier today from John DeLeo. If we could make those two changes, then I would second that motion.
and the clerk has those changes to receive those, so you'll make those changes.
And also, Mr. Chairman, before we go further, I'd like to make a motion that we remove items 9 and item 20 from tonight's agenda.
And both those are being removed because they're not coming before us.
That's correct.
So I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So a motion and a second to remove items 9 and 20. Any discussion?
And the specific reason we're removing that is,
They are not coming before us this evening.
okay?
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Those 9 and 20 will be removed. And now on the minutes, is there a motion to accept for those
Motion to
changes?
accept.
Motion to accept with the amendments?
A second?
Second.
Second, motion a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 5, city manager's report. Manager motion?
Thank you, Councilor Hamilton and the rest of the board. Just a couple of quick announcements this evening. First, just want to let the public know that City Hall and other entities will be closed on Monday, February 21st in recognition of President's Day. And then the other announcement is just to alert the citizens of Ellsworth that Versant Power has notified us that they will be in our community in an effort to switch out meters. So if you have a Versant Power service at your home and they show up, it is in fact Versant, and they are coming around to the community to upgrade and do replacement of meters at homes. So
Any chance that while they're in town that they'll remove probably 50 utility poles of theirs that are no longer being used?
well, we can certainly raise that question to them. I suspect it's probably not the same people. but-
No, I understand that, but they seem to have developed a habit of when they replace poles, they don't remove the old one. There's many, many, many of them, just in the downtown area alone. So.
Councilor O'Connor.
Is it possible you update the citizens of Ellsworth of where we stand with the smell factory in the industrial park?
Well, I'm not really sure. I don't have any prepared information about that, other than to say that staff is visiting the location on a weekly basis, taking notes regarding the condition at the location. The wastewater treatment plant supervisor is working with the facility up there to provide any assistance that he can regarding the situation up there at that particular facility. And we've been in contact with the DEP, and they have provided information as to what their steps are that they plan to take to address the odor and bird issues with that particular business owner. So staff and others are continuing to work on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Manager Bush? All right. Item 6, committee reports. Couple quick items. One is just to, on the EMS committee, Councilor Blanchett has stepped off of that committee to allow for Councilor Kaplan to be appointed to that committee. So Councilor Kaplan will be sitting on that committee. On the HCTC committee, this is the committee that's been operating for a while now in terms of looking at the building and looking at the future needs of that building. Former Councilor Grindle was a part of the committee, and the committee would like to have her continue on that as a community member, along with Mickey Sumter. So I'm bringing it forward for this group to see if there's any concerns about having those two individuals appointed to the committee.
I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah, good. Keep the continuity.
Do they want to do it?
Yes,
Good.
they're willing to do it if the council's in agreement with it.
Willing or unwilling, still like to have her on the committee.
So everybody's okay if we add them to the committee? Okay. Then we shall do that.
She's even in the advertisement for that, isn't she? For that school?
Oh, you mean, yeah, they do a,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's great.
All right. And we have a request of the city clerk to approve the Ellsworth Housing Authority appointment of Kristen Cartier to the Commissioners Board as a tenant commissioner. Is there a motion to accept that?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Unanimous. And other counselors, anybody attend a committee meeting since last meeting?
Mr. Chairman, Local Roads Committee met on January 26th, I believe the date was, in preparation of, for the budget presentation in April, the FY23 budget. And as expected, we have more roads than we have money that need attention. But more importantly, it was explained to us quite well that before we can really do much work on any roads, rather than just go ahead and paint them black, we have to do something with the drainage. And it's not going to be cheap. The drainage we have is more or less doing everything but draining. Some of it is plugged, some of it was put in many, many decades ago. It goes under private property, it goes under buildings. That all has to be corrected. We have a lot of water that runs down from the area in the hospital, runs down Main, Church, Park, Lincoln, and Davis Streets, which runs onto Oak and continues its run. Eventually, it finds its way down to the river, but not without doing a lot of damage beforehand. So we're gonna have to bite the bullet. As someone said that night, we've kicked the can as far as we can. We've kicked it up against the wall. And it's time that we have to do something. We don't have a choice, or we're gonna lose the streets. And the second piece of news that came out of that meeting was a letter from Maine DOT. The residents that live on and use Route 179 have been asking for quite some time to have a traffic light at 179 and Route 1A. And the state has finally given their answer. And as you might suspect, it wasn't one that you wanted to hear. The regional engineer sent us a letter, and he has his reasons. If you can make sense of them, you're a better man than I. But the last paragraph, he says, based on the benefits and cost, signalization of this intersection would not qualify for Maine DOT funding as a safety project, or as a mobility project. And he's only speaking of the light. If a light is put in, we also would have to put in a railroad crossing. DOT estimates the cost of the light at $275. The railroad crossing is gonna be all of that, if not more. And they're saying, no, they won't do it. But they do say, hey, Ellsworth wants to put that in, have at it. Thanks a lot. My comment to all of this, it's an election year, people. The ones that use this road, live on this road, need this road, or in the vicinity need the light, I'd start making phone calls and writing letters. The election's in November, and one of the people running, one of the elections is for governor. I'd go loud and proud with this request and have the DOT. They've got more money than God right now. And I would fight that decision. So.
Council Miller and then Council Kaplan.
Yeah, as a follow-up to what Councilor Blanchett said, I was at that meeting as well, and I also then wrote to Representative Grohowski and asked for her help, and she has reached out back to us saying that she's willing to get some people from the DOT come and meet with the city again, and I forward that on to the city, and we'll see where it goes from here. But yeah, please write, call, do whatever you can, because they're not going to put a light there unless somebody dies, it seems like.
Council Kaplan.
Yeah, that was my next question, is are they waiting until somebody dies there, or,
Yeah.
and what data did they use specifically to come to this decision?
Well, you hang on just a minute and I'll tell you. Additional research was done with regards to the crash history of the intersection. Most recent 3-year crash data was used October 18 through September of 21. Safety benefits were calculated using AASHTO's Highway Safety Manual for the existing intersection. This safety benefit over a 10-year period is $173,000. I have no idea how they can get it into dollar figures. The safety benefit does not outweigh an estimated signal cost of $275,000.
And who's this guy again?
This is Alan Farrington, the regional engineer for Maine DOT.
I would invite him to come drive 179 and try to make it out of there at rush hour.
So in the morning when the school's,
I know.
So I may perhaps be able to add a little bit of clarity, because we did meet with this individual and the DOT which is what sponsored this letter, and in its simplest form, the traffic counts of vehicles coming off of 179 aren't at a level of such that a traffic light there, the created delay for north-south traffic by that traffic light is justified by the number of vehicles coming off of 179. So that's really where we come into the situation where the DOT is saying, no, the delay that's going to be caused and the traffic issues that are going to arise by a north-south delay there by a traffic light are greater than the need for a traffic light for the people who are staged waiting to come off of 179, because the average wait there, by their counts, and don't shoot the messenger because I'm not doing it, but by their counts, were not great enough to warrant the additional delay. And you have to keep in mind that DOT in the state of Maine, their highest priority is going to be the north-south traffic, because as we know, that's a direct route to tourism and down east and Acadia National Park and Bar Harbor. So the greater delay there, the more impactful that is to the higher number of commuters as opposed to the delay that's coming to the folks that are coming off of 179.
However, how many subdivisions are now on 179 that have
Well,
yet to be built?
And we have requested, and they have told us that they will do an updated traffic count. But again, subdivisions being put in and actual houses and commuters living there are not going to be picked up at even, an updated.
What time of year did they actually do this traffic count?
Was done in 2017, which is again why we've requested a new one.
And what month of 2017?
I think they're doing fall.
I believe it was fall, but they use factors
Yeah.
to calculate. They count in the fall, but then there's a factor they can use to factor what it would actually be in the summertime. To factor, it's not an actual.
But again, summertime is not going to help us because summertime is going to be peak north-south traffic flow.
Right.
So those traffic counts are going to be significantly
But
higher,
that's
which is
when
going
the
to.
most danger comes. When you have 4 million people going right up that road and the people that live on 179 can't get out, so they're making risky decisions.
I agree, but what they're comparing is the crash data for that particular intersection.
So it has to be a fatal crash before they'll do it.
I wouldn't say fatal, but the crashes have to be happen with higher frequency than they currently do at that intersection in order for the safety feature to override the traffic impact of putting in the light there. And right now, we're just not at that balance.
Councilor O'Hara?
I'd just like to add that I think our frustration sounds like we're upset that the state won't fund the bill. We as a city could fund the bill if we find it necessary, am I correct? We're just
Yeah, there's
crabbing because the state won't pay the bill, am I right?
That's correct.
I think we're lucky there's a lot of responsible people live up that way because we don't get in accidents. Because I'm telling you, I'm close every time you leave that road.
If it doesn't meet the state's requirement to fund the bill, can't there be a conversation about the city if they think it's bad? I mean, we're just sitting here angry that the state won't pay the bill, but there's a lot of intersections in Maine that probably have more traffic count than that. If the city thinks it's that serious, let's grab the bull by the horns and deal with it.
I guess, and this is not against having a traffic light there. I do think that information is important for a decision like this, especially an expensive decision. And the DOT certainly has a formula and an approach that they apply, so they have data. I think additional conversation is certainly warranted and helpful. But I think there's also the point, and Manager Mosher, you've pointed this out in the past, is what is the other side of the coin in terms of the risk, the start and stop traffic. So you put another light there, particularly when it's congested, and you now have traffic that's starting and stopping at another point, which impacts going in the other direction, does that lead to, and I'm sure there's data that they would have in terms of number of lights, distance, and all of that, could that lead to greater crashes and more challenges? So I think it's warranted to have more information to understand the decision-making process before any decision in terms of local appropriation for it, because I just wonder about that. Councilor O'Halloran.
And I would agree with that. I'm not saying throw money at the problem just because few people are upset by it. Certainly you got to do diligence to get through the process, but just because the state won't pay for it, if due diligence says that it's needed, then well, let's deal with it.
Well, and as Councilor Miller pointed out, we are going to reconvene a follow-up meeting with the DOT. And I've already requested a new traffic count. So it's a continuing process. It's not something that I think, obviously, we're not going to make any decisions here tonight, but we'll certainly bring the information back to the council. And it's something that we can continue to discuss and explore.
Any other committees? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, citizens' comments. This is part of the agenda where citizens can step forward, introduce yourself, where you're from, and you can talk about any item you wish. If it's on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity at that time to talk about an agenda item. Otherwise, feel free.
Good evening, councilors. I'm John Lenahan, founder of Constitution Hall. For those of you that aren't familiar with what Constitution Hall is, it's the old cinema at the Main Coast Mall. It's been shut down for approximately 4 to 5 years, fell out of disrepair, and I was thinking several months ago about how to find a venue here in town that I could utilize to be a proponent and educational source for our constitutional freedoms. I'm concerned as a proud American and citizen of Maine, citizen of Ellsworth, that our constitutional rights are disappearing. Some we give up willingly, some have been taken away from us like that. And I think a lot of it becomes because of the ignorance we have of the Constitution and the values of where our nation was founded. So my goal is to set up this Constitution Hall, which we've done. We've renovated it. I gave you just a brief handout that we're handing out to everybody. We've been fortunate, we've been blessed, we've had a lot of interest in it. We've had 5 activities just in the last 2 weeks there. So it's been very, very well received. We've got a lot of inquiries in it, and we've got a lot of plans for it. We're also going to put back in the movies in place there. We're going to do patriotic movies that would show the foundations of our nation. We have a group right now that every Thursday night is doing a study called the Constitution is a Solution. And it looks at a lot of the problems that we have around our nation and our state and our town right now. And I personally believe, as this group does, that every solution can be found within a constitutional freedom. So that's every Thursday night at 6 o'clock. It's a 6-week course, depending on how it's reviewed. He doesn't live here in town. He lives in the Union area, I believe. And he's going to evaluate it and probably maybe do that on an ongoing basis. Knowing that, we've had 2 or 3 other individuals that are similar groups and have different aspects of the Constitution that want to come up and do educational process. I know Councilman Miller, your wife is on the school board, I believe, and I've had several people that have asked, is there any way that we can integrate this and make this like a class for the school? And that would be up to the school board or anybody on there that would be interested in doing that, but we certainly want to make it available, and if we have to schedule like matinees, if you will, to do it in the afternoons, or do it so it's something that our children at all age groups could come and see that and learn about the Constitution, we're more than willing to do that. I just believe it was originally taught in our education system and on colleges and schools right across the board. We're all familiar with it. We've kind of lost that vision of what our Constitution entails. So my simple mission statement is to provide a patriotic venue to unify all groups, organizations, and individuals within Maine that share a loyalty and love for our Constitution, for our God-given freedoms of faith, family, and friends, and who share one common goal of taking action to stand up for our Constitution. I tried to make it a very broad mission statement. I'm personally involved with over 100 groups around the state of Maine with very different, what I believe are constitutional concerns that they have. And so rather than have them splintered out in different groups, I'm trying to provide a venue where they could get together, unify, become acquainted one with another, and they could build relationships. So that's what I've done. I've handed out this handout. This is what we do, is sitting right out there. And I'd invite any of you to come out and check it out. I'd be more than happy, give me a call. I'm not there 24 hours a day. I usually try to be there 9 to 12 in the morning. But if you call before you come, a day ahead of time, I'll make sure I'm there. I'd love to give you a personal tour through the place and show you what we're doing. We have a website, constitutionhall.org. If you go on that website, you'll be able to see several pictures of what we've done on the interior, and just check it out and see what you think. But I believe it's been very well positively received in the community. We've taken an eyesore in the community, if you will, that was not being utilized and used, and I think make it into a very valuable venue for our community. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on it. I haven't had a grand opening yet. We will be having that in the next few weeks, and I just want to give you a heads up, so anytime you want to come out, you're more than welcome. And thank you very much for your time tonight.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So in terms of with the events you hold, do you take responsibility for information that comes out of those events?
No, I just provide the venue. For any group that's there, they're responsible for their own content of what's in those meetings.
Okay, because when you read the mission statement of bringing people together,
Right.
So you don't vet that?
No. On my application, I vet it to the point where I want to know what their mission statement is. So and hopefully they'll line up, if they don't line up with what we're trying to accomplish in that, then they will not be allowed to come into the hall. And as you can see, the mission statement is very broad that I put on there, but as far as specific comments or what happens in the meeting, I don't vet any of that. I don't see a script, or I don't know what they're going to do on their agendas.
Would you address that in the future in terms of if something that is very divisive happens, or very statements that are factually incorrect, would you then look at that in terms of having that group back into that facility?
I would definitely take a look at that. Again, I don't know going forward what it is like that. If a group was in there and I felt we're violating constitutional principles and procedures of that type there, then I certainly would take a look at it going forward. And the mission, as you can see, the application is on there as well, what people send to us, and that's what I do, is to try to look at what they're, basically an overview, like-minded, general thing like that. So I think I am going to add that. I don't have that statement in writing, though. If something is said that I do not personally agree with, that's really, I'm just providing the venue for that to happen right now. So I do need to have something like that. As we're in the startup stage, if you will, right now. When those things become available, we will expand on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
When you have a venue, are all welcome to attend an event? Is there any reason that somebody would not be welcome to an
The company
event?
is all, well, that's up to the individual group that's having it. As far as I'm concerned, they'd be all welcome, but when I lease this out to a hall, I don't have a financial fee for it. It's donation only when they come in there. But that would be up to the group that's running the meeting, whether it's going to be public, private, or who does attend to that. My goal is to just provide the meeting place, the venue, and not intrude, if you will, on their constitutional freedoms to run the meeting and have the particular venue that they apply there.
Okay. I guess if we're not we, but you are advertising, you're providing the venue, and then a group comes in and they're advertising something to the public,
Right.
are all welcome to attend that event?
That would be up to that group.
Okay.
I'm just providing the venue, what they do, how they market it, how they promote it, what their, policy is on whether it's public or private. That's entirely up to the group that's coming in there. I'm not going to micromanage theirs or even try to suggest that. As long as they meet up with the original thing where their mission statement matches up with what we're trying to accomplish like that, then we're going to turn it over and let them use the venue like that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And please come out anytime. I know a couple councils have been out, but please just stay, you can do it as quick as you like and stay as long as you like. But I think you'll be happy with what you've seen that we've accomplished out there. Matter of fact, hopefully there'll be some use for the city council maybe use it, their own meetings going forward for something like that. Sometimes you have a bigger attendance, you have your night, you might need a little bigger auditorium. We do have still the big screens are there. We've replaced those out there, so there's 2 13 by 23 in screens. I've just put one projector in. We're just gonna put another projector in so we can live stream between both auditoriums.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Cara Romano. I'm the Director of Heart of Ellsworth. I'm here this evening to report out about our event last month, our annual meeting for Heart of Ellsworth. Each year, the Heart of Ellsworth board and staff invite community members to our annual meeting to engage the community in our work as an organization. We kick off the new year with highlights from prior year accomplishments, and we outline what's in store for the year ahead. The second half of the meeting is reserved for conversation to gather participant ideas, establish areas of improvement for the downtown and the organization of Heart of Ellsworth, as well as provide a platform for open discussion. So this year's event goals were to establish an open forum for community members, create an opportunity for Heart of Ellsworth board and staff to update the community on organizational accomplishments, as I said, for the past year, and then to identify areas of opportunity and growth for the Heart of Ellsworth and downtown. The program budget for this year's event was a total of $825, and we had 20+ volunteer hours that were worked to produce the event. We had a survey that we used to engage folks to sign up to pre-register so that we were able to send a link to folks who wanted to attend. We had 90 people sign up, and we had 53 people that were on the call. So out of those 90 signups, the following areas that people had the most interest in learning about was our new initiatives. We had 79% of the folks who signed up saying that they were interested in new initiatives. 52% were interested in our small business entrepreneurial ecosystem work. 47% for the downtown mural and Art of Ellsworth program, and 45% of the folks were interested in how to become involved in the organization. This year, we were very fortunate to have a few city council members, quite a bit of staff from the city of Ellsworth that attended, which was a bit of a change from years past. So we were very, very, very encouraged to see that. We did have Manager Mojer on the call, and he was able to directly respond to attendee questions. And it really created a nice open dialogue, ensuring that community members felt heard and to have questions and items answered in real time. So it really sort of diminished conversation about things that may not have been true, or just getting people to sort of understand what really is happening rather than just rumors and things like that. So this kind of engagement really gets ideas circulating in our community. It fosters a deeper understanding of the city process, which was one thing that we had a lot of people comment on afterwards, that they felt like they understood how things work inside the city and how that translates to what happens out on Main Street for their businesses. It also fosters a deeper understanding, like I said, of the city process, and it connects community leaders, community members, and small business owners so that we all can work together to identify opportunities and creative solutions that better Ellsworth's downtown and our collective approach to businesses. In your report, I stuck a couple of the verbatim comments from folks that were on the call, so you folks can see those as you're looking. But what I sort of tried to do in the report was kind of correlate the community feedback so that folks on council that were not able to attend would be able to understand how the information was organized and sort of what it is that we're hearing from community members. So part of it, the first big thing, and I know that a lot of you know, but just in the spirit of trying to make sure that we're doing our due diligence of communicating back, the wayfinding signage, I do understand that it is, you folks are working on it, and we're really excited about keeping the community updated, so we're committed to the process of making sure that you folks have a platform that allows the community to be updated. But we did have people stating that it's difficult for people to find places to park, and no pedestrian signs or painted crosswalks being part of the issue. We had one attendee, Jared Goulet, who, from the Hancock County Planning Commission, that talked about the Complete Streets program. So that's something that we hope that we can sort of help, if there's a way for Heart of Ellsworth to help with that. The next thing was public restrooms. Again, we understand that that's a very, very, very expensive endeavor. But it is something that we hear oftentimes from downtown business owners, that it would be lovely if there was a way that there was some sort of centrally located public restroom in downtown for our visitors. And the last one, as we just talked about, walkability. And so it is one of those things that it is a challenge, and it was really great because Manager Mosier was able to speak directly to attendees on the call and to explain and update everybody in real time. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Just one, Kara. Under walkability, this person, Sarah Bowden, described it as, quote, very unsafe. What's unsafe about walking in downtown Ellsworth?
I think she was referencing directly the four-way intersection that connects Water Street, State Street, and Main Street. And that area where there's less than 3 seconds of the white man walking to be able to cross the street, and cars are still constantly able to turn right, I guess, onto Water Street, even when the light says stop. So that's one area that's been identified. I certainly, if you're interested in more information, I can certainly email her and try to get her to summarize exactly points of reference. But I think that that's the big area that I've heard from a lot of downtown merchants, that's what they're concerned about, is that four-way intersection.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious to know.
Sure.
You know, especially on the Main and Water Street. And if she has any comments on Main and High Street intersection.
Councilor Kaplan.
I believe when I had conversed with her via email, that it was the fact that if they go up Franklin Street, there is no sidewalk. And so they're forced to go down Water Street.
Oh, there's a sidewalk on Franklin.
She pushes a stroller with
Yeah.
kids.
There's
The
sidewalk,
little ones.
you know, right behind, I still call it Newberry's.
Not from, she's talking about from Pine to Water Street. She lives on Water Street.
Water Street.
And she has to come up here to Main Street. She has to go to Water Street to Main Street. She'd prefer to go up Franklin to Main, but there's no sidewalks on Franklin from Water Street to Pine Street.
And so she's
That's
forced to
correct.
push a stroller
Yeah,
in
on
the
that
street.
section of Franklin, there was not. It goes as far as Pine Street from here.
Yeah, that is an area that we have had others, and thank you, everyone, for saying that. We have had a lot of people ask about a sidewalk on Franklin Street connecting Water Street to Main Street. So,
Okay.
I mean, I know that it's a very high-traffic area, and it's a
Oh, it is,
cut-through,
no
you know?
question.
So, yeah, absolutely. But, I'm sorry.
No, you're talking to the right counselor
Oh.
for sidewalks.
Well, I guess I also just sort of, in general, one thing that I should have put on here, and I just realized that I didn't, is that the big part of all of this is that Heart of Ellsworth, our goal with all of these community meetings that we're trying to conduct and trying to sort of allow space for people to state what it is that they're having difficult time with, ideas, whatever it is that they want to bring to the table, is making sure we can figure out how to create space for there to be public-private partnerships between the city of Ellsworth and Heart of Ellsworth. And one thing that we are committed to is trying to find outside funds to be able to bring them into the city to be able to help with projects, whether it be the Franklin Street Park or Parklet, I should say, or it's, you know, our downtown grants program, expanding that, ways to be able to help with any sort of thing that it is that we already do that's part of our mission statement, and trying to figure out, I would say that On some levels, we've been successful with bringing money into the city, and we are committed to doing that so that it lessens the burden on the taxpayer and being able to open up projects so that there's space for other entities, so it isn't just the city of Ellsworth always doing everything that has to get done in the city. It's a lot of different groups working together with the overall goal of lessening the burden on taxpayers, so,
All right, thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
My name is Steve O'Halloran. I'm a resident of the city of Ellsworth and have been for 57 years. And I've heard a lot of comment tonight about needing extra funds to lessen the burden on taxpayers. I thought it would be appropriate to share with you an incident that happened to me in this city as a resident when I came to City Hall in 2015 to pay my excise tax. I came in, and I'm not picking on employees, I'm just saying the city as a general should become more business friendly. I want to share with you, I heard that looking to bring more money into town, et cetera, that I just heard this lady talk about. I came to City Hall in the spring of 2015 to pay my excise tax on tractor-trailer trucks, okay? I stood in line, I asked what they needed, I got out of line, got everything together, and got back in line and attempted to pay my my excise tax. I handed the lady the paperwork. She told me that I lived in Bangor and that I couldn't pay my excise tax in my own town. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't ask for any ID. But she told me I lived in Bangor. So I left, picked up my stuff, and left the city hall. And went outside of town and wrote a check for $30,000. Now, excise tax stays in the city that you pay it. That's an example of an unbusiness or less than business friendly. That's $30,000 in 1 year that could have been in this community to work on some of these issues.
Mr. O'Halloran,
Mike?
where were those leased vehicles housed?
Ellsworth, Maine.
Where were they housed then?
Ellsworth,
Where were they
Maine.
leased out of? Where was the office?
I'm going to ask that we don't get into a debate. You can finish your comments.
Thank
and
you.
then
Thank you.
And then we're going to,
Thank you. My point is this.
and then
My
Council
point is-
Blanchett, I'll let you have a comment.
Ellsworth needs to be more business friendly. Here I am trying to pay the excise tax in the town that I live in. The trucks were brand new. They were sitting at my garage in Ellsworth, but I was told that I live in Bangor. So, bring that fast forward. That means not only did $30,000 walk out the door that day, how many years has it been since it has walked out the door that day? City Hall needs to be business friendly. You're in business to take money. That's what City Hall does. $30,000 that year may have built 10 foot of sidewalk, I don't know. But that's free money that got drove out of town. And this is 2022. That was 15. Do the math, folks.
Wait, well, please. No, please, stay right there. You can make the comment, but you can't take the question. Is that correct? The way I understand it, state law dictates that where the vehicle is leased from is where the excise tax must be paid. She didn't say that you couldn't pay the excise tax because you were not a resident of Ellsworth. The vehicles were not a, quote, resident of Ellsworth.
All right, now, going to call this to order. Councilor O'Halloran, you can go to the podium, but you're still a counselor. So if you have comments, you can direct them to the chair, to the group, not to individuals. Councilor Blanchett is entitled to his comments. Councilor O'Halloran, you are a member of the council. You can sit here and address your comments. I will not recognize you at the podium again. You could speak from your chair if you want to be recognized. I would comment that, just for the record, that events do happen, and sometimes things don't play out the way we would like. But I would like to say that I have seen a tremendous, since I've been on this council, a tremendous effort by the city of Ellsworth to be business friendly, and I won't recount all of that, but I don't want to leave an impression that the city isn't business friendly. That's your opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion, but I just would say that is not my experience.
I didn't come here for a debate. I come here to just share as a citizen the experience.
You're also a counselor, and you're sharing an opinion based on it being a counselor. And so my comment, Councilor O'Halloran, you will not be recognized from the podium, period. You will not speak. You are not recognized. Any other comments? Councilor Lyons.
I would like to see this tension gone. I'm getting kind of sick of it.
We're following proper procedure, Councilor Lyons. And I instructed, if Councilor O'Halloran wants to comment, he is free to comment. There's not preventing him, but he's not doing it from the podium. I do not understand why you're going to the podium, Councilor O'Halloran. Can you answer that question for me?
Are you asking me to answer that question?
Yes, I am.
I'd be glad to. I did not relinquish my citizenship when I got elected.
This portion, when you are in this meeting, you are representing as a counselor. That portion of the agenda is for citizens' comments. You have full reign to address comments here as a counselor. And you can laugh it off all you want.
I am a citizen of this town.
For the record, and I want you to hear this, because this is not my opinion, this is the opinion, when you make comments during this meeting, you do not relinquish your role as a counselor. So any comments you make, come forward as a counselor. You are a citizen, but you have been elected to represent as a counselor. And when you make statements that represent the council as a counselor, the other counselors have the right to ask questions and to make comments on those remarks. And that is what I was allowing this evening.
May I comment to that?
You have the floor.
Thank you. Here or there?
Here.
Okay. I'd just like to say this. There is a difference whether you're sitting here at this table as a counselor or at the podium as a citizen.
And I just want to go on record so that I'm being clear with you, because if it comes to it, as chair, there are certain things, when you are standing there, whether you believe it or not, if you make certain types of comments, you are there as a counselor, and you will not be allowed to make those type of comments. So I want to be very clear with you that you can go down there and you can talk all you want, but you are representing yourself as a counselor. And there are certain things you can and cannot say as a counselor. Councilor O'Halloran.
I'd just like to make the record clear that I go to the podium and talk about non-agenda items. I talk about agenda items here. I did not debate anything. I was asked a question by a counselor. I was simply making comments. True comments. Big money comments.
Anybody else wish to speak? Item 8, presentation of awards. There are no presentations this evening. Unfinished business. Item number 9 has been removed. So item 10, council order number 011002, request the finance director to approve the purchase of Cassell software.
Good evening, councilors. Josh McIntyre, Finance Director. This request is kind of a continuation of a request last month when the IT Director stepped in and asked for the purchase of the Trio software to replace part of the functions we currently use were performed by our Munis software. You may remember that Munis was first purchased by the city about 10 years ago and implemented 8 to 9 years ago. There have been a lot of problems with this software from the beginning. Upgrades that have taken longer than are necessary, disruptions to services that citizens can access online, general lack of service, which has become much worse in the last few years and has become very problematic. Excessive times to perform routine services, and then just general unfriendliness of the software itself. It's very old software that was never really upgraded to make it more user-friendly in a kind of a Windows-based environment. So when I came on the city last year, it was already being discussed as possibly replacing Munis, and in the summer, City Manager Mosier put together a software committee to evaluate our options. And one of the first steps that we took last month was replacing Trio, which basically serves the front counter and for the motor vehicle registration licenses, but it also importantly does the tax billing, which has been very problematic in the last couple of years, getting tax bills out efficiently. We're happy to say that we've already gone ahead and made that purchase with Trio, and the implementation is underway, hopefully with an early May finish date, so it's great progress there. But the other part of Munis that's being used is really the financial software, and that's where this request tonight comes from. Part of the continuation of the evaluation of existing options out there for software, we narrowed it down to a couple of finalists. But Cassell, the company that's been in business for about 40 years, so they're not just Johnny-come-latelys. They were founded by a CPA who was also an auditor, so it's really strong on the auditing and financial side of the equation. They've got a tremendous amount of business in the West since they're from Utah, but they are expanding east. We did a lot of due diligence, reaching out by email and by phone to customers who've been with them for a long time, customers who've been with them more recently, customers who specifically switched from Munis to Cassell to find out what their experience has been. And I think on every single aspect where we've tested them, they've excelled as far as even Nate from IT called up their service line one day just to check it out to see how long it would take to get a response. And it was very quick, very impressive, the feedback that he got. They also came out, 2 people, to give us more than a full day demonstration in the middle of October on their service and how efficient it is, how user-friendly it is, the amount of preformed templates for reports, for the friendliness for end users to evaluate data and information. Overall, in every single way, it's a significant upgrade over Munis and what we have now. And and further, it's about $30,000 less for the Cassell Trio combination than what we're currently paying for Munis every year. There is, as you would expect, significant upfront costs of about $200,000 to purchase this software and implement it. But given the annual savings on the combined software, what we're paying for Munis now, we would expect a payback period within 7 years to pay back our upfront costs. So we're very hopeful that you will grant us this ability to go forward today and purchase Cassell. I think that would create a lot of efficiencies and give us much better data.
Questions?
Josh, did you say they've been in business 4 or 40 years?
40, about 40, like late 1979, I think, so maybe a little over 40.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Kaplan?
So last month, you had put forth all of the savings we were going to be getting, and this is a one-time cost, or
For which part? There's
Cassell? Because with the ones that we passed last month, you were talking about a $20,000 annual savings, and then 77,000 to change over to Munis, and that would be saving, what was it, 8,400 on that, and, but looking at this is $198,000 to switch over to Cassell, as opposed to continue with the Munis and the Tyler Technologies. But the school board recently voted to accept Tyler Technologies, so is it?
Tyler has a ton of products, so Munis is only one of their products.
Okay.
And the school board is, they have pretty good luck with the software that they have.
Okay, good.
It's better supported, they don't have any problems. Munis has been widely known to be losing a lot of customers because their
Okay.
support is just horrible.
So it's the tech support itself.
That's one of the major problems. They run Munis on several different versions simultaneously, so they have customers who are Munis customers, but Bar Harbor is different from us, different from Brewer, different from Old Town, even though we're all running Munis. And I think that they've underinvested in their software service. And so we have real problems finding people to talk to who are knowledgeable about the problems we call up with. IT had open software tickets or request tickets for literally years that were never closed out by Munis.
Okay. And so this 198,000, that is a one-time expense?
That's the one-time expense to implement Cassell, including a chart of accounts changeover and migrating historical data.
Okay, is
Yeah.
there an upgrade fee?
No, when Cassell gets any upgrades to the things, they push it out simultaneously to all their customers at once, there's no additional fees.
And what about on-site training?
They're coming here to do it.
And that's going to cost?
It's in the cost of their flights for their people in their hotels. And that's not specified in the package, that's yet to be determined, but it's not going to be a significant additional amount of money on that.
Okay. Can you foresee any other unmentioned costs in this proposal? Besides the
No.
flights and the training, meals? and-
No, we went through it pretty thoroughly as a committee, and then last week with IT again to go through and vet it, and making sure that we had everything that's been previously covered by Munis would be covered between the trio Cassell combination. And I think that we've got it pretty well sussed out on a generous side on that cost basis. I don't expect it to go over that.
And so the combination of these two will save labor and time and increase productivity
Yeah.
of staff, basically, is what you're saying.
And service to customers, to the citizens, really, even more importantly. I mean, we had a lot of problems in the last couple of years getting out the tax bills on a timely basis, and a lot of that was just due to the software problems.
You don't have to get them out on a basis.
No, actually, we don't. It's not legally required, but people like to get them.
Just to add to the savings component, so we currently pay an annual fee to Munis, which is approximately $77,000.
Yeah.
So the annual fee going forward, if we go with Cassell and Trio, is approximately
40. Yeah.
So it's almost a $40,000 savings annually going forward, in addition to those
Okay.
savings that you just indicated, so.
Thank you for explaining all that.
Sure.
Do we have the workforce in place to make that transition? I know there's got to be a lot of data migration and some of it's manual and everything. So we're ready to take that on and move so that it doesn't come here and then we find ourselves needing to contract for a longer period of time.
No, everything is good there. And I think that they said that they said that an integration would be 12 to 15 months. But I talked to a finance director for a town in Pennsylvania who decided last spring to switch from Munis to Cassell, and they didn't deliver the data to Cassell until the fall sometime, and they went live January 1st with Cassell. They said it was really quite an easy process, and they didn't have the IT staff that we do. So.
And there's also, built into the estimate or the cost is the contracting of a Munis expert, consultant, so to speak, to help us with that transition. Somebody who's well-versed specifically in Munis to help us make the conversion from Munis into the Cassell product.
Councilor Heller.
Is there any, is there any penalties for leaving Munis that aren't in your numbers?
No.
So Munis will not give us a bill for cutting a contract or anything like that?
No.
Councilor Hanson.
Move to approve the purchase and implementation of Cassell ERP software with initial costs to be paid from the city's reserve fund and the remainder to be made from the fiscal year 23 budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 11, discussion to review or form a charter commission. This is an item I sponsored, so I'll just set the stage. It's not an item that I'm looking for action tonight, but really more for public to be aware of the issue, so that we can take this up. Charters are supposed to be reviewed every 10 years by municipalities, and we're beyond that point. So we have an obligation to do that. There are various ways of reviewing the charter, all the way up to having a formal charter commission, which is a extensive process, and there's voting, there's lots to it. So I thought it would be important for both the council to understand what that process looks like, as well as the community, so that we can move on this issue and do due diligence around this particular item. I don't know if there's much more other than to encourage everybody to do some research on it, and we will put it on a future agenda. If the community has comments, they should certainly connect with the council around this, so that when we take action, we take the action that people are interested in. Councilor Kaplan.
How many council members would be on this commission, and would it also include citizenry, staff members?
Yeah, it's pretty extensive. I can't cite exactly off the top of my head in terms of the process, but if there's a commission, it's represented by the community. I believe there's one council member, if I recall correctly, but that's vague. That's why I just wanted to bring it forward, because we have to take action on it. And like I said, there are several ways that can happen, from an informal review by the council to having the extensive commission if it's warranted. And there are some requirements around what constitutes warning a charter commission. So this is pretty involved, and it's just important that rather than us just take it up at some meeting and vote on it, that we have some time to think about it, and more importantly, have the community think about it. All right, no other questions? Item 12, discussion to create a workshop to develop the goals and plan for the usage of ARPA funding. Councilor Hanson.
Yeah, we discussed this at a previous meeting. Can I just make a motion? Can I just do that?
Yep. I don't want to interrupt, but just real quick, before you make your motion.
Yeah.
I would like to just make the recommendation, staff, we discussed this at our last department head meeting, and we think that there's been some educational opportunities through MMA and other entities that we think it might be beneficial both to the board as well as to the community for our first workshop, because we're likely to have multiple workshops on this issue, being that there's a significant amount of money and a lot of feedback that we're going to want to be receiving before final decisions are made. So I think it might be beneficial to the board and to the community at this initial workshop to seek one of these entities to come in and provide us with some education as far as acceptable usage, the reporting requirements, and and some of the intricate details that go into the decision making as to how we can spend this money. Because what I'd hate to have happen is I'd hate to open it up for community members to come and give us ideas about how we should spend the money, only for us to turn around and tell them, well, no, without any real explanation or without any real education, well, no, those aren't acceptable uses, and this is why. So I think maybe if we initiate and start the process with an educational opportunity for everyone to learn exactly how these funds are intended to be spent and what strings are attached or what parameters are in place, that may help us going forward to be able to kind of eliminate the angst of not listening to the community because we didn't essentially spend it in the way, certain people wanted to, because we just couldn't. It wasn't, didn't fit within the parameters of the intention. So just an idea, and I just wanted to put that out there before you pose your.
So I'll pose my motion as motion to have a series of meetings in which to discuss the goals and plan for uses of the ARPA funding, with the first of those workshop meetings being primarily educational, so that we all know what we can use that money for.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have seconds, discussion. Councilor Caplan.
I think that it would be more useful, given that the ARPA funding is put in place for the city to cover certain expenses, and who better to decide what those expenses are than the department heads. They know what their needs are. They know what losses there have been during the pandemic, and I think that they would be more capable of deciding or coming up with things that they can and can't use that funding for.
But that's all part of the education process for us.
And there's no reason that we can't be discussing that at the meetings.
Right.
Well, I don't think that we should make it a wish list either of, freebies to anybody, coming up with programs that we don't already have. And, you had mentioned childcare programs and stuff like that. I just don't think that we need to have a program out there that we're just going to take away at some other point. If our snowplow drivers, for example, need better wipers. He's laughing, but I had the privilege of going with the snowplow drivers, and they can't even see in the storm because their wipers are frozen and there's snow and ice all over the windshield. They have to stop and manually scrape the windshield from the inside of the truck. And, if ARPA money can be used to make safer conditions for them, and then also make safer conditions for the residents of Ellsworth who pay the taxes to have decent roads that they don't currently have, I'd rather use it for that than another program such as a welfare program that we're just going to give away money that's not going to last very long because that money's going to run out. We're crying about a street light, we're crying about roads and potholes, but we're not talking about using the ARPA money to do something that benefits 100% of the citizens of Ellsworth.
Councilor Lyons?
I was just, lost my train of thought. I was just wondering if she meant like the department heads could decide and then kind of bring it to us to say, hey, can we spend it this way? Is that what you were thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in terms of the motion to have a workshop, I don't think what is being proposed is, I think they all relate, because no one has identified exactly where the fund should go. And I think the starting point is understanding what the conditions are, because none of us know that. We're sitting here, we don't know exactly how the money can be used, and I think that would be beneficial, because ultimately, even if the department heads suggest something, it comes through the manager to us to approve. So having that understanding will give us a better grounding, whatever direction we go with it. So I support that motion, and think that that's the right way to get the education behind it. Other comments? All in favor of the motion? 4-4. All opposed? 3 against. Did you identify? The motion passes. We will set up a first workshop then. Consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine, will be acted by one motion. Since there's only one item on that will happen. Item 13 is council order number 021422, request of the deputy treasurer tax collector to accept supplemental bill payments and authorize the city manager to release said properties through municipal quitclaim deeds.
Move as presented, Mr. Chairman.
You have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. New business, public hearing and action on the issuance of business licenses. Are all of these in order? No problems with anything. There are a number of them, so I'm just going to ask quickly, is there anyone here that is going to comment during public comment? Otherwise, I need to open and close the public comment, but I'll do that much faster, knowing that there are nobody's here to comment on any of those areas.
I'm just available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, the Atlantic Coast Inn, 200 High Street for renewal of a city lodging house license. It's a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed.
Move as presented.
We have a motion.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. L Governors LLC, DBA Governors Restaurant, 253 High Street for renewal of a City Class C license, victular liquor, and renewal of a State Restaurant Class 3 and 4 malt and vinous liquor license. It's a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval of L Govs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Siam Sky LLC, DBA Siam Sky 278 Down East Highway for renewal of a City Class C licensed liquor and victular and renewal of a State Class 3 and 4 restaurant malt and vinous liquor license. It's a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed. Council.
Move to approve as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Sanjeeva Abeyasakara, DBA Serendib, 2 State Street for renewal of a City Class C license, victular liquor, and renewal of a State Restaurant Class 3 and 4 malt and vinous liquor license. This is a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval of Serendib's application.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. GC Pizza Hut LLC, DBA Pizza Hut 211 High Street for renewal of a City Class C victular and liquor license and renewal of a State Restaurant Class 4 malt liquor license. It's a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. The Grand, 165 Main Street for renewal of a City Class B license, victular liquor and amusement, and renewal of a State Other Auditorium Theater Class 3 and 4 malt and vinous liquor license. This is a public hearing. Public hearing is open. I'll go a little bit slower.
Don't get in the way of progress. I'm just like, I'm good unless there's a question.
Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman, can we take our time? I really want to think about this one. Move approval of the Grand.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Charlie's Pizza, 18 Hancock Street for renewal of a City Class C license, victular and liquor. This is a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval of the applicant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 15, Council Order Number 021401, request of the Harbor Commission to award a food vendor contract for the Harbor Park.
Good evening, councilors. Lisa Seklich, I'm here for the Harbor Commission tonight. On Friday, January 28th, the City of Ellsworth held a bid opening for proposals to serve as the city's food concession vendor at Harbor Park. We received one RFP from the previous food vendor, Harris's Harborside Takeout. The Harbor Commission then met on Thursday, February 3rd to discuss the proposals we received and their recommendation to the council. Since only one proposal was received, the commission voted to recommend proceeding with the vendor, Harris's Harborside Takeout, with some stipulations, recommendations for acceptance or approval from the council. The commission would like to offer a one-year contract with 2 potential additional one-year term extensions with the rental fee to be negotiated. They would like the shack to be open 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day. They would like to stipulate that the grease and trash management be kept up better during this current contract. They would like the bushes and bamboo in the area behind the vendor to be kept up by the vendor, and the public works crew would do the initial spring cleaning, but then the vendor would take on the maintenance behind their shack during the rest of the season. If the council agrees with the Harbor Commission's recommendations, then the following motion is on your sheet.
Council Blanchett.
Any truth to the rumor that Mike is going vegan this year? Please?
Since there's lobster on the menu, I'm gonna guess not.
A lot of chicken nuggets.
I lose again.
Does this contract preclude anybody else with a food truck from coming into the park? Not for the whole season, but just for a weekend?
Yes and no. We have vendors that come in for like autumn gold and those types of things. But essentially, yes, the RFP was for that potential option. Had we received a second RFP, then we might have looked at multiple vendors. But since we only received one, this is the one we're proceeding with.
Councilor Heller.
It's $400 per month. Is that for 12 months, 4 months, 3 months?
Just from May 15th to October 15th, I believe it is, during the harbor. Yep. And that has gone up. The site is essentially a city's, we have the hookups and we have the site, and it's kind of to help bring smaller food type businesses. And since he started, his rent, or what he's paid the city for rental for that space, has gone up each year.
Truth be known, I think it's a very good choice. Mike has done a very good job down there, he and his family, and they enjoy it. And from people I've talked with down there, they enjoy having him there. So.
I think overall it's been a good experience for everybody. Yep.
Councilor Heller.
Why does the city feel that they need to charge the approved vendor?
It's basically a rental for the space and the hookups that we have there.
So there is some hookups that go with this?
Yeah, there's sewer and water hookups, yep.
Okay.
They pay the bill, but we made the investment into the space to allow the hookups.
Okay. Seems like he's doing, or whoever you choose, is doing quite a service for that area. I just question the logic of charging them to do that service. I guess that's the way it's always been, am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's essentially like a lease space, right? It's for better, it's not a building because he owns the building, but it's a leased space with hookups, much like a camp space or a, you know what I mean? So.
And exclusive rights.
And exclusive rights to sell at the harbor other than Autumn Gold and some other smaller.
Councilor Blanchett.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve a one-season contract for a commercial lease agreement with Michael Harris, DBA Harris's Harborside Takeout, for a vending concession stand at the Ellsworth Harbor at a price of $400 per month with the conditions noted above, and to authorize the city manager to sign the lease agreement.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you all.
Item 16, presentation by the Economic Development Director and/or staff on the upcoming comprehensive plan, which I sponsored.
Bear with me for a second.
You want me to start over?
Start over. Well, true, I'm not the Economic Development Director. Good evening, I'm the City Planner, Elena Paget. And the Economic Development Director will follow me for the second item. I put together a handful of slides. This was more or less also what was provided in your packet prior to the meeting.
Yeah.
But I thought that this might be easier for the public to view. There's only a handful, but there's a fair amount of content in there. So these are also, if you go to the planning department page on the website, it'll be pretty much the first thing you see. So if you'd like to either follow along right now or look at it later, that is available. So my primary goal this evening, and thank you, Councilor Hamilton, for the request to do this, is to provide an overview of the opportunities that the public will have to participate in the upcoming comprehensive plan process. I would say the second goal is to kind of do the same for council and to review the importance of the plan in advance of both the process and the next agenda item, which will have to do with more of a financial decision. There's no decision associated with this item. This is really just informational. So to kind of give an overview of the role of public participation in this process, you'll see on the right-hand side, it's kind of a bottom-up process, right? So there's room for participation by the public at each level of this. So it moves up through what we envision as some subcommittees that would be focused on the different topic areas that the plan requires, which I'll get into in a minute. A steering committee that oversees the entire process and pulls together with a consultant the complete draft of the plan, which would go to the planning committee or the planning board to make a recommendation to council, which would then adopt the plan. And finally, it goes to the State Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry, which makes a finding as to whether it's consistent with the growth management program. So I mentioned that in here. The growth management program is what lays out the rules for comprehensive plans. That includes, they want to see, in fact, that you've really strongly encouraged public participation and met some certain minimums, but comprehensive planning by its nature is meant to include a lot of participation anyway, so that is the best practice. As I mentioned, it's built into each phase, so you'll see a little more later on and in your packets as well, the different forms that can take at each level as it moves up the chain in this process. And to kind of give you a broad idea of what it is, the comprehensive plan, I mean, it's called comprehensive for a reason. In another state, it might be called a general plan or a master plan. It really is the public's opportunity to provide marching orders, in a sense, to look at the current data, conditions, needs, and desires of the community and formulate this guiding policy document. So that partly is like an overall vision. What do you see Ellsworth being in 10 years, 20 years? More specifically, that's going to inform your land use decisions. What kind of ordinances do you put in place? The zoning, the regulations that govern subdivisions and site plan development, Some of the more programmatic decisions that the city makes, the types of services that we provide, how we provide them, how we do take in revenue, and also a large role it has is in capital-related decisions. So all of our facilities and utilities, our human resources, et cetera. And, you know, this might be a little bit jumping back and forth in order, but hopefully by the end you kind of got the full picture and in conjunction with what I provided in writing, it helps paint the picture too. So they'll be at these different levels in the process, which we anticipate taking 18 to 24 months is kind of a reasonable timeline for a full comprehensive plan. I think in the future, you know, thinking a little far in the future right now, something I've seen work well is if you update it on a rolling basis and do like a chapter at a time, that makes it a little bit more achievable to bite off a little bit at a time. So all along through the process, you know, I've put this presentation on our website. We have a space now for updates like that. We have other things that we can make, so just following along with agendas and minutes and the online resources that'll be created over the course of the process. Volunteering, there will be both a steering committee for the effort and then subcommittees for the different topic areas, which I'll show you a list of what's required in the plan in a minute. So lots of opportunities to volunteer as a member of one of those committees, and then commenting at any of their meetings, also at the planning board and at the city council when we get to those stages. So the committee meetings would all be, of course, open to the public, and I foresee a citizens comment item on the agenda like a council meeting, so you could speak to anything really, regardless of what's on their particular agenda that night. Once it gets further along in the process, the planning board, when it gets to the point of recommending a plan for adoption, would have a minimum of 2 public hearings, fully noticed and everything. That's the time to, you know, have read the draft plan in its entirety, make comments on that. Once the planning board makes a decision and recommends adoption to the city council, again, a couple of public hearings at least. You know, there could be more if there were revisions or something happened that required more, to provide further comment from the public before the council decides to adopt it and send it on to the state for a finding of consistency. Throughout all of those committee processes, looking at the different topic areas, there will likely be surveys, listening sessions, potentially interviews with different community groups, like going to certain segments of the population rather than forcing everybody to come to us at 7 on a weeknight. And maybe design charrettes, something like what you see in the photo, which is maybe a more fun, interactive kind of session. Of course, encouraging others to participate, sharing the word, and again, at the end, actually reviewing the plan when it comes to fruition, comparing it to the old plan from 2004, and making sure your comments are heard before it's adopted. Now, this is a lot. That's part of why it's online. So I'll focus on the right-hand column. It's divided into things that we'll be looking for from the council over this fairly long time period. The center column is things that staff, the planning committee / planning board, and the associated consultant role would have to take on, and then the third column, actions by the public. So again, I put in citizens' comments at regular council meetings because you do have that standing, and depending on the comment, it might not be the best venue for it, but people can always come here and speak to you about what they're seeing, experiencing, needing. So short term, the top row, that's kind of this spring into the summer. Before you tonight is a decision about funding with TIF funds. There'll be a couple steps this spring to prepare an RFP, release it, ultimately award a contract to a consultant. You'll be going through your FY23 budget process this spring, So actions by the public is to attend those workshops and another opportunity to comment as they see fit. We're hoping to, at some point soon, open up an application process for roles on the steering committee. That would be a pretty large committee, and hopefully folks who can make that longer-term commitment to see through most of, if not the entire effort, and then to start serving on that. Medium term would be like another year or so as you get into the meat of each topic area. All these little subcommittees are forming and doing their work. So additional opportunities to volunteer and serve on a committee in a topic area that might be of particular interest, or if we're lucky, expertise for members of the public. Continuing to follow along on the public materials, attending and commenting at those committees, as I mentioned, which would have a public comment portion, and then the various different special kind of participation options like charrettes, listening sessions, and probably a couple of surveys. Long term, as we get closer to having a draft to present to the planning board and council in full, there will be, as I mentioned, hearings associated with each of those steps. You know, folks should review the draft and just continue to follow along, and then even at the very last stage, when the plan is forwarded to the state DACF for a finding of consistency, at that point, the DACF also opens it up for public comment, not only from Ellsworth residents, but from residents of surrounding communities and the Regional Planning Commission and other state agencies. So there's a lot of like cracks at that to provide comment on how the plan is being formulated. And finally, once it's all adopted, you know, the council and the planning board should both be using it in developing, amending regulations, making decisions about the capital improvements plan. And I would say that the role of the public at that point is to, you know, continue to stay engaged and remind decision makers that that is the document that should be looked to when those decisions are being made. So these are the required topic areas under the growth management program. So this is where we would be looking for some dedicated volunteers that might have a particular interest or expertise, or, you know, when I say interest, I mean maybe somebody who's particularly affected by it too, right? So we'll be looking at existing land use, population demographics, economy, housing, recreation, transportation, public facilities and services, fiscal capacity and capital investment plan, historic and archaeological resources, water resources. I feel like I missed marine resources on there, but natural resources, agricultural and forest resources, regional coordination, future land use, and an optional, well, there's plenty of optional topic areas, but one that's laid out in statute is working sea level rise into different parts of the plan. So I should also say that in looking at each of these, the work that's done is looking at what was the plan we had, what has changed, what data do we have to support what's happening now, what has changed. That can be census data, that can be data that is collected through, you know, the aforementioned surveys or other sources outside of the census, what have you. There are some state goals that you need to kind of match up with. They're very kind of vague, usual goals, like protect our resources of the state, right? So they want to just make sure that any community's plan is consistent with that. So it's really data gathering, analysis, and then some goal setting with associated implementation strategies to get to the point of achieving those goals, right? And so, again, kind of backwards, but the reason that this is all important is because the comp plan is what provides your legal basis for certain ordinances, such as zoning and impact fees which Ellsworth doesn't have much of, but could in the future. Same with rate of growth ordinances. A community can't have any of those types of ordinances by state law unless you have a consistent comprehensive plan. I guess our comprehensive plan is expired, so often people raise the question of what does that mean for the legality of our ordinances. It does leave them more open to challenge. However, we're not so far gone that the old plan is meaningless, right? So those ordinances were developed with a consistent plan for the most part. The comp plan also gives you the basis for your capital improvements planning, which is kind of a 5 or 10 year horizon planning and funding mechanism for the big investments that the city makes. So as you work through a capital improvements program each year, the council should be asking the question, sort of, how do the data that we have, the needs and desires that have been expressed, how are those informing, affecting our long-term plans for making these capital investments? So if you go back to something like the topic of recreation, folks are saying, oh, I really wish we had X amenity, it's documented in the plan. Oh, and along with that, our population is going to grow, projected to grow by X% in this many years. Oh, okay, in this many years, we're probably going to need that amenity, and that's what people are saying they want. So that's when you put it in the CIP. Again, it establishes those sorts of goals and implementation strategies, and provides that basis for not only legal decisions about ordinances, but wise decisions about spending, and what types of ordinances and what types of planning tools and related tools are worked into those ordinances. So, with all that said, we have a portion of the anticipated funds required to do a full comprehensive plan at this point in time. The following agenda item, we'll get into that a little bit more, and there will be, we anticipate at this time, a small request in the FY23 budget to get to that full funding. So, I'm happy to turn it over to Jana for the next item.
Well, so thank you very much for the presentation. Probably some questions?
Sure.
Before we jump in. Council Kaplan?
So I'm hearing regulations, ordinances, restrictions, land use restrictions and regulations. It's a lot of restrictions that we're talking about, legalities and whatnot. How much does having a comprehensive plan impact private property rights?
Well, the regulations in question right now are mostly things we already have. Zoning, site plan review, subdivision. How much they affect them? On a spectrum, Ellsworth is pretty lax. So that's open to interpretation or opinion. But that's why, I guess if you had a comprehensive plan that said, we don't want to zone anything, everything should be a free-for-all, then maybe you'd abolish your zoning ordinance. Is that the likelihood? Probably not. But the comp plan is the process for people to say what they'd like to see for the city. You derive the regulations from that.
On the steering committees, is it kind of to gauge, like, are you literally steering the committee and what people, like the consultant, do they literally use any techniques to get predetermined outcomes, or?
So the idea of a steering committee is to steer the process, to serve as, assistant to the planning board, me, the consultant, somebody to bounce ideas off of as we go through that, figure out, is this the timeline we want to go with? And the consultant role I see as more of a facilitator and bringing in, potentially tools or ideas that we might not have thought of or used here.
Couple more questions. How close are these comprehensive plans to the 17 sustainable development goals that are with Agenda 2030?
I would have to look at that, I'm not familiar.
Okay.
Yeah.
That should be good. That should be good.
So one of the things you mentioned this evening and why it's important to start this process is that comprehensive planning is intended to be inclusive of the community, and that there'll be a lot of effort to get the community involved. And that's one of the things that I would strongly encourage, and my personal belief is that there should be voices from all different perspectives at the table to develop something for the community. We don't think the same way. We have differences of opinion, and the culture we're in now with everything is so divisive, and this attempt to, if you don't think my way, I don't want to talk to you. I don't think we want that for Ellsworth. And so I hope that the community will participate in these committees, lend their expertise, their opinions, to create a plan that looks for the future of this city, what it's going to be, and to recognize that we all should compromise in what we think, so that this can be something that we can utilize to move the city forward, not just have a product that meets regulatory requirements, but can actually be something that guides us for many years to come. And we hear it all the time, at least I do, from why didn't we do this? Why didn't we think about that? Why are we so behind in these areas? That's what planning's all about. And the more voices we can get to the table, this will be a long process, as you said, I think the better. And this really, tonight, is just an attempt to get the community thinking about it, and I hope that people will find a way to participate.
Yes, and don't bombard me with well, if you do, that's fine, but I anticipate people saying, oh, how can I do this? And we're not quite ready to advertise for available positions and a schedule of meetings and everything, so keep an eye out, because when it's time we will. And you make a good point. I kind of anticipated the question about what is the role of a consultant, and when I say facilitation, I think part of it is not just facilitating a good process when you've got a bunch of different people in a room and a bunch of different opinions, but when it comes to sifting through all of that input, it's not like we're going to have 95% of people saying one thing and 5% another. It might be 51% and 49%, or it might be 60 and 40. And so part of that facilitation is, okay, you've got competing priorities and competing interests, and how do you balance that? And because it is possible to have regulations that, or capital improvements programs, whatever comes out of it, that do balance those different interests. It's not one way or another. If that were the case, we'd be, an industrial wasteland or like conservation land only, but that's not the reality. We have a little bit of everything, and that's what it takes to have a vibrant community with lots of opportunities, right? So.
Other questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Item 17, discussion and action on allocating TIF funds toward the comprehensive plan.
Good evening, I'm Jana Richards, the Development Services Director. First, before I go toward my request and some of that background information, I'd just like to reiterate the fact that Ellsworth is really unique in geography as well, in that we have people that would represent different geographical areas of the city. We have people that live in North Ellsworth, people that live on lakes, people that live in the rural area versus the downtown urban area. So those voices are going to be very important in representing all of Ellsworth. So I would just encourage people to look at the slide that Elena had put together of those, I think it was like 10 different elements or areas that the plan will look at to see if there's an area that resonates with you. We've already met with the Harbor Commission, who is very interested in talking about the water and marine resources, as they should be. Of course, we would, more than likely, they would have to be an Ellsworth resident to be able to be on these subcommittees as well as the steering committee. But if there's questions as to, what the different elements are, you could either read the plan or we could help summarize them for people. So please feel free to reach out if there's any questions on the different areas that the comp plan covers. So just putting that plug out there one more time to the public if they want to reach out. So if the council can remember back to the FY 2022 budget cycle, in the planning budget that for last year, we put in a request for $35,000 that would be put toward the comprehensive plan, with the caveat that we would be coming back for more funding because there's an estimated budget of about $100,000 to do a full comprehensive plan. I also, when presenting that budget request, stated that I would look into the use of TIF funding, tax increment finance funding, to be put toward the comprehensive plan, and see if it is an eligible use for TIF funds. Had a conversation with the State Department of Economic and Community Development, and it turns out that it is an eligible use to be able to use that toward the comprehensive plan. In looking at the various elements that Elena had up there, staff was able to determine that approximately 47.5% of the comprehensive plan could be eligible for TIF funding. So out of a $100,000 budget, that equates to approximately exactly $47,500. So tonight I am here to request that the city council allocate $47,500 of unallocated TIF funds to be allocated toward the comprehensive plan.
Discussion. Is there a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
I have a motion to accept that. Is there a second?
Thank you.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? I didn't know which one you voted.
No, I was opposed,
Oh, you
sorry.
opposed, okay.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Item 18, discussion to change city council meetings to meet twice per month on the first and third Mondays, sponsored by Councilor O'Halloran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to propose that the city council meet the first and third Monday of every month. It seems that there's big agendas. I, as a new counselor, have many things that I would like to put on the agenda, and I have tried to be fair to the other counselors by not putting a grocery list on the agenda each month. Tried to put one or two, but when I campaigned to become a counselor, I signed up to work, and there's a lot of work to be done, and I believe that it would be more productive if we had 2 meetings per month. And I think that it could be changed again with another counselor's suggestion if it didn't work out. But I think it's worth a try to meet Monday, first Monday and the third Monday of every month. To have smaller agendas, maybe better decisions to be made. Therefore, I bring that before you for discussion.
Councilor Kaplan.
Would that not have to go through the organizational meeting?
That would be a decision that this group would make. Council?
I agree, it would have to go to the organizational meeting in November. The question arose last July of changing the council meeting to 6 PM. And that's what we decided then, was to put it off until November. I feel the same thing here. I also feel that a new counselor, in all of meeting number 3, they determined that the meetings run long. So far, we're at an hour 45. Hell, that's nothing. And if the same counselor would stop dragging the meeting out with extra long explanations and the bashing of our great employees that we have here at City Hall, then we could keep the meetings under 2 hours. So therefore, there's no way that I would vote to go to 2 meetings a month. It's needless, useless, and ridiculous.
Council Lyons said, I see. Did you?
I would say that I do believe that we should stay until all the agenda items are met on a certain night. So if, like the last time we put off, I think we probably should have stayed that night a little longer and taken care of them. I'm not sure if 2 meetings a month is necessary, but if there's a night that we have to go until midnight, that's what we signed up for. And so I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Councilor Hanson?
I just had 2 thoughts about it. One was thinking about, I actually think this meeting has gone fairly smoothly, but if there's a way to create an organization within the meeting that allows us to be efficient with our items, I think we should think about that. And that's another thing we could do at the organizational meeting. And then my other thought about meeting twice per month is that one thing I think that's really important for the Ellsworth City Council is that there's a wide range of people who volunteer to be on the City Council and apply to be on the City Council, and I think if we make it twice as much work, twice as many meetings per month, you're gonna limit who ends up running for City Council and maybe eliminate people who are parents of young children or working full-time. And I think it's worth paying attention to that so that we have broad representation on the City Council.
Councilor Kaplan?
As far as me doing it twice, I'll do it every day if I have to, if it coincides with my work schedule, but I'm more thinking of the staff that have to stay late. That's why we took it from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock, so that we didn't have such a long day for city staff to be here. But at the same time, I think that if there's items that are of particular interest and we're concerned about going over, then I think that those can be addressed during the committee assignments, whether it's Finance Committee or EMS Committee, Harbor Commission, et cetera, et cetera. If we work those items down to streamline them, we can make the meetings go smoother and thus speed them up.
Councilor O'Halloran?
Is this board, is there a limit of the amount of agenda items we can, oh, thank you. Is there a limit that is acceptable for number of agenda items by a councilor?
There's, to my knowledge, there's nothing that states anywhere that limits an agenda other than what's reasonable and realistic to get through.
I'll just put more on the agenda. I've been trying to be very, very cautious of everybody's time and trying to put 1 or 2, but if we don't have support for 2 meetings or even a trial of 2 meetings, then simply I will ramp up the number of agenda items that I send in.
So I just want to comment on Councilor Kaplan. I completely agree with your suggestion. I think that if we have, I don't believe that the council meeting is the forum, the place to vet issues. I think it happens at committee meetings. I absolutely agree with you. And I think that if we as individual councilors have items that need to be vetted, that we should either take them to staff, Manager Mosier, to see if staff need to get involved first, or we take them to the committees. And then we put things on the agenda that are focused and are boiled down to us so that the community, one, has an opportunity to participate, and then the committees, they do. And the council meetings, if we're voting on an issue, they get to comment, but they don't get to participate in the process. So I think your committee suggestion is a great suggestion in terms of making sure that before we place an item, we go through that in our heads of saying, is this ready for the council to take action on? Has the community been involved? Has the staff been involved? Do we have the information so that when an item comes to us, it's presented to us in that fashion? Because when we vote, we should have that kind of information. We shouldn't use this forum to try to gather that. So I think that's an excellent suggestion, and would be a way for us to make sure that the agenda is focused and streamlined for us to act on the way that we need to. Councilor Kaplan.
And I would just add that, Councilor O'Halloran, if you have more than 10 items, will you at least bring pizza?
I've tried to be conservative and not hog the agenda, but there's a lot of work to be done. Even, the ideas, I'm not saying that you have to vote for the ideas, I'm just saying that the ideas, that's what this is about. And if everyone wants one meeting a month, I believe it's a 2-meeting-a-month job. But if this council doesn't agree with that, then there's nothing I can do about that other than ramp up my agenda requests.
Councilor Kaplan and Councilor Lyon.
So I'm okay with 2 meetings. Just for example, tonight, I've come home from work, kid's still at track, and gotta run, get him, then get him fed, get him back to the house, and then get here by 6. And if we go very late, then I've seen him for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, and, it can't be much different for city staff that have kids going to school here, kids in sports, people that are, that they're up at 5 in the morning, they're here, I don't know what time they get here, but they're here pretty early, and they're still here at 8 o'clock at night. So I can see your point as to doing 2 meetings and getting everyone home early, but at the same time, do we want to do that to them twice a month?
Councilor Lyon.
I just want to reiterate that, we put off 4 agenda items last, my brain. I don't want to do that again. I would rather cover them that night, however many it is. We stay till it's done, be done with it.
Is there a motion or not? Councilor Blanchett.
I just want to explain to Councilor O'Halloran, as a councilor, you have a responsibility and the right to put items on the agenda, responsible items. I've seen your proposals that you want to have in the next 2 or 3 months. Absolute ridiculous. They just make no sense whatsoever. And you want to shorten these meetings?
Councilor Blanchett, can you, rather than direct to Councilor O'Halloran, can you just direct comments to the?
Sure.
Thank you.
Agenda requests need to be responsible requests. They cannot be this, where the hell did that idea come from type of request. The ones that we've been made aware of have no standing whatsoever. First of all, one flies in the face of the law, and 2, the second one puts the safety of every city employee at risk at times. And to even have that on the agenda, to take up time, and now he wants to do this twice a month? No. The word here is responsible request. the ones that Councilor O'Halloran has proposed for March and April meetings, they're embarrassing. They should never come before this board.
Councilor O'Halloran.
When I was elected, I was told I could put anything I wanted on the agenda for discussion. And it shouldn't take long if they're ridiculous to hear the item and go on to the next one.
This one has taken 12 minutes so far.
Is there, Councilor O'Halloran?
I simply believe I should put what I believe, just because or a council member disagrees with an agenda item. I think that's what the council is here for. I saw some council members disagree with someone else's agenda item. Put it on the table, talk about it, and make a decision.
So is there a motion on this item or not?
I'll make a motion. It may fail, and that's fine. I'll make a motion that this council meet twice a month, starting July 1st of 2022, the first and third Monday of every month.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion sits and we don't address it.
Thank you.
Item 19, executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405-60 for discussion of labor negotiations with the Ellsworth Highway Unit, Massachusetts and Northern New England Laborers District Council, Local 327. Is there a motion?
Motion to move to executive session.
Second.
You have a,
You just record the motions, who made them.
yes, and we will be coming out for the, well, let me take the vote first. We have a motion and a second. All in favor going into executive session? All opposed? One opposed. For the public, we will be coming out of executive session, not likely to report. However, we need to come out of executive session and then to go into executive session for another reasons. But we will be coming out momentarily before going into that to make that separate motion. So I will just. All right, so we are back out of executive session. Councilors, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move that we approve the side agreement from the Ellsworth Highway Unit, Massachusetts and Northern New England Laborers District Council, Local 327, to be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 20 has been taken off. So item 21, executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405-6A for personnel matters. Is there a motion?
Move to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6 for personnel matters.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? One opposition. We are now in executive session. This matter pertains to